For over 3 decades, the people of Somaliland have struggled for recognition, not for a new state carved from chaos, but for the restoration of a de jure republic that briefly existed and lawfully declared its independence on the 26th of June 1960, recognized by more than 35 countries, including the United Kingdom, Egypt, and the United States. And yet, rather than championing this powerful legal and historical truth, many within Somaliland's own political elite have persistently diluted it, knowingly or unknowingly, sabotaging the very legitimacy they claim to defend. The greatest disservice comes not from foreign diplomats or hostile neighbors, but from Somaliland's own leaders who, through language and narrative manipulation, erode the foundations of its legal case. Time and again, these elites refer to Somaliland as a de facto state, a phrase that implies the territory functions independently in practice, but lacks lawful standing. This is not only misleading, it is fundamentally false. Somaliland is not an upstart breakaway region. It is a state that lawfully existed before voluntarily entering into a union with Somalia on the 1st of July 1960, a union that was never ratified by any binding legal treaty. Worse still is the repeated framing of Somaliland's history in the language of unity. When political leaders in Hargeisa use phrases like, "We united with Somalia," or "We separated from Somalia," they are subtly but destructively accepting a false narrative that Somaliland was once an inherent part of Somalia. This is categorically incorrect. The 1960 so-called union between the state of Somaliland and the Trust Territory of Somalia was not a merger of one country with its former colony, but rather a union of two sovereign entities, and a failed one at that. The so-called Act of Union was never properly signed or enacted, and the government of Somaliland and its parliament or its people never signed any legally binding agreement. And when the conflict erupted, the result was not a domestic dispute, but an international crisis. The genocide carried out under Siad Barre's regime in the late 1980s against the people of Somaliland, leading to the deaths of tens of thousands, was the tragic culmination of that failed union. And yet, Somaliland's political class continues to shy away from framing this history in legal and political terms that would strengthen its international case. Rather than asserting the reassertion of sovereignty, a powerful legal argument rooted in international law, many prefer the language of breakaway or aspiring statehood, reinforcing international confusion and delay. Instead of fighting for recognition of a country that already existed, they act as if they are lobbying for the creation of something new. This failure is not just semantic, it is strategic. Every time Somaliland is described as de facto rather than de jure, or its re-independence is portrayed as a secession instead of a legal restoration, it weakens its diplomatic position. International law respects the restoration of sovereign states more than secessionist movements. The elites who misuse this language are not just misguided, they are doing the work of Somalia's central government for them. Moreover, the people of Somaliland have been repeatedly misled by these narratives. They are told to wait patiently for recognition, without being told why their leaders have failed to mount a consistent, coherent, and legally grounded campaign for sovereignty. The mass consciousness is shaped not by truth, but by deliberate ambiguity, as if independence were a favor to be granted, rather than a right to be reclaimed. After 35 years of self-governance, free and fair elections, peace-building, and institution building, Somaliland deserves more than ambiguity. It deserves the truth starting from its own corridors of power. The way forward is simple but urgent. Somaliland's political class must abandon misleading rhetoric and start speaking the legal truth. The world needs to be reminded, over and over again, that Somaliland was born as a state in 1960, united in hope, and withdrew in horror, and now seeks not creation, but restoration. Anything less is betrayal. Until then, the people of Somaliland will remain hostage not to Mogadishu's hostility or the world's hesitation, but to their own leaders' silence and self-sabotage. It is time they found the courage to tell the truth and stand by it without compromise.